Hi, my name is Michael Stout, and I'm talking about the InBev final case. So overview and position. So basically, InBev is a large multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporation, largest beer company in the world, and they operate at 57 countries, and that makes compliance difficult. So what they did is they put compliance in these zones that they operated in individually because they know best what countries they're in. But all that changed when a slip up happened in India due to bribery. Um, so compliance seeks to communicate expectations, deviation policy, detect violations when they occur. But however, it's a large corporation, so that's very difficult. However, organizations grow, relying on norms becomes insufficient as relationships among employees are distant. And the issue is that distance has become greater due to the centralization, because due to the centralization. And now the compliance corporate program is overseeing all of compliance almost, and they are trying to set up one set of rules for all the countries, and they're trying to do that. And that might lead to a lot of confusion. There's 57 different countries, and all of them are different. And having one program for it will become very difficult for it. It can be done, but there is too much reliance on being centralized. That's why a weak zone committee, compliance committees is negative. That's an issue, um, because they're on the front lines. They know the countries they're working in best, and it's going to become very difficult for them to operate. And they're on the front lines. So, like, if something changes, they have to go through corporate instead of they going to corporate and saying a problem. And that comes to my next issue is the communication. The communication is weak. They said in the case that they only talk once a month with corporate. So corporate's making up all the rules, and then they talk once a month to these to their zone leads. They call them leads, but they're really just corporate. They really just do corporate policy. So they only talk once a month. That's far too little communication. They need to be talking every day. They need to be talking every day. And yeah. So not knowing what compliance program looks like. So they talked about in the case how in the United States and a lot of the Western European countries that these there's no guideline for what compliance should look like in all these countries. And that makes it very hard for these multinational country or companies to set up these compliance programs because they don't exactly know what they have to do for every single one of these programs. Albeit the United States and other countries are very lenient towards companies that have better compliance programs up to 90% or something like that. But it's very difficult knowing, and I think there could be something done to fix that. Robotic compliance program. It's just the compliance program they made is based primarily on data, and like I said, they're very distant from corporate, and like the people in the zones are very distant from corporate, and it makes it very difficult for them to operate because they're far away from corporate, and they don't have any power, they don't have any leeway, and they have to wait for corporate to make the changes. And yeah, they're just distant, and it's just cold and calculating, and there's no human touch to it at all. And I think that's something that needs to happen. So my recommendations: compliance czar in each zone. So these czars are more than the leads in the zones. They are much more than that. They are the arbiters between the zones and corporate, and they represent the zones themselves too. And they're there to ensure that the needs of each zone are there and they fit the corporate policy. So corporate and the czars in the zones can work together for what's best for the zones. So they're not left behind just because of the corporate policy. You know what I mean? So that needs to be done. Stronger communication between the zones and corporate. That's pretty much what I just said. That can be done a lot through the czars. And like I said, they only talk once a month together. We need to make sure they're talking daily and that they're on the same page about everything, and that the corporate guidelines and incentives and everything is on the same page with what each zone is looking for. They just need to meld together to ensure that they're together on this. You know what I mean? So that the employees and everyone is connected, and it doesn't feel distant. So compliance incentive award. So the compliance system is good. It's based on data and everything like that. That's a good thing. But they should have a compliance award winner for maybe like each department or something like that. And they should go on vacation with corporate. They should hang out with the czars. They should feel part of the company. They should feel part of compliance, and they should really feel the humanization and respect that comes with that. And that's really how you get a individual to get on board with something, you know, instead of just robotic data. Oh, you did a good job. You know what I mean? Let's like connect and mold and become one company. So achieving a long-term balance, and that's what we want to do here. We want to achieve a long-term balance for the zones and corporate. We don't want one side to, we don't want when like corporate have all the power, and you don't want zones to have all the power, because out zones where all the power, disaster. So you need them both to have power, and you both need them both to be connected. Think of it like the US government. We elect these senators in every state to represent us. So every state is represented, not just one large corporate entity. Think of like a dictatorship or something like that. So they need to be melded together and make sure that they're all together, and communication is key, and everyone is on the same page about everything. So yeah. So humanization and incentives. So what we're looking for here is the humanization of incentives to occur, and that can be done by the czars and corporate going around and talking to the boots on the ground, explaining to them, educating them why this is important to do, why following the guidelines is important to do so. Because right now in the compliance system, you know, it's just the compliant, they just get these incentives and it's data driven, and that was great. You know, it's working for the company and everything like that. But these employees need to feel like they're respected, that they're known, and that they're appreciated, and that they're there, and not just some corporate castle far away is making these changes. And this is very important to do, to ensure that you know, they follow these incentives, they follow these guidelines, they feel appreciated, they feel like an employee, they feel powerful. And then lastly, lobbyist. This is addressing that there's no guideline for a compliance committee. They could set up a lobbyist to go to DC, and this would be very good for them, so they could have a official guideline for what they need to do in compliance. You know what I mean? So this would allow them to even better their compliance system, and they can work with other companies as well to figure out what compliance should look like in some of their biggest markets. And yeah, that's pretty much I got from me. Thank you so much for listening. And this was a very difficult case to talk about because they did so good at first, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think there's a lot that can be done to improve the company.